Welcome to Dyson Mind, a podcast hosted by Brad Brown and Jason Kaufman to explore the intersection of life, games, science, music, philosophy, and creativity through interviews with leading creatives. All are welcome in this space.
You and I have this difference where you are a humongous fan of audio podcasts. And interestingly enough, considering we're an audio podcast, I've struggled with it just because for me, you listen to them in the car.
Mm-hmm.
I don't commute. And when I'm working, I haven't commuted for years because I've worked at home. So I've
Morning
always,
coffee.
yeah, I know. And you and I've
That's
talked about
that's when
this.
else I do it. Mm-hmm.
And that's what I probably have to get into the habit of doing that. I have to find a time that really works best. Right now, it's kind of ad hoc, or when you say, "Hey, you need to listen to this,"
Yeah.
or "Hey, this one's come out," other
Yeah.
than ours, because
Yeah.
I don't like listening to myself.
I never listen
Yeah,
to ours ever
yeah,
unless I'm editing, and it's just because I'm cleaning it up.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, but that being said, there are a few podcasts
Yeah.
that I will listen to that I find interesting. And one of them is one that I don't listen to all the time just because of time and everything like
Mm-hmm.
that. But you introduced me to it a couple years back.
Yeah.
And as time permits, I will listen to it from Planetary Society.
Yes. Planetary Radio.
Planetary Radio. And I enjoy it just because I love the dynamic of the
Mm-hmm.
conversations on it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think a lot of a lot of it is because they have great guests, and I think a lot of it has to do with the guest that we're going to have on next.
Yeah, who is the current host. And we're not going to say a whole lot about this because we end up getting into it in our interview with the charismatic and intelligent and engaging Sarah Al-Ahmed, who is the host, having taken over from Matt Kaplan, who in his own right was just a wonderful podcast host. I've been a member of the Planetary Society for quite some time, as we'll all hear in the discussion in the chat. And uh, like you said, I listen to a number of podcasts, and every once in a while, I kind of go through and like you and I've talked about this. You do the same thing, and like you were just before we clicked record, you were cleaning some apps off of your phone.
Yeah.
I clean up my podcast list so that I've got enough coming in on the topics that really interest me, but I don't want to be overloaded. Like,
Mhm.
honestly, it's only been in the past 3 or 4 months that I've given myself permission to just not listen to an episode if it doesn't interest me, of podcasts in general, if I'm a subscriber. That has never happened with the Planetary Radio. It is my absolute
No,
favorite podcast.
I would be, and again, I now joke, I would genuinely be surprised just because you have a real affinity
Mhm.
for the content that comes from Planetary Radio.
Yeah, I really do. So I think we should just get into it. We could talk about this for a while,
Yeah.
but Sarah was so much fun.
Oh yeah.
So much fun to talk to. And just to give everyone a sense in the audience of what kind of a person she is, afterwards, like the day after, maybe it was that night, she emailed and said, and I think I can say this, and said, "We forgot to talk about X. Do you want to hop back on?" And we couldn't, just with our schedules right now, we just couldn't. But it was so nice of her. And yes, we still, Sarah, want to talk to you about
But
that.
but that just meant that she said yes before we had the opportunity to ask her to come back to join us again this fall
Yeah, I hope so.
for another episode. So thank you for accepting, Sarah,
Yeah,
for
nice
that.
for this fall on a very special episode. Oh no, that's different.
That's
Uh,
yeah.
Although Mayim
No
Bialik,
one knows the Blossom joke
everyone
anymore.
knows the Blossom joke, and Mayim Bialik, another scientist. But all right,
Yeah.
so let's go on over. This is a really, really fun discussion, really fun interview. Sarah Al-Ahmed holds a Bachelor of Arts degree in astrophysics from the University of California at Berkeley. After some time as a data taker for a supernova research team using instruments at Lick Observatory in Mount Hamilton, California, she moved to Los Angeles to pursue a career in science communication. Sarah spent 6 years as a museum guide, writer, and show producer at the historic Griffith Observatory. She was a monthly contributor to Griffith Observer magazine and a content creator for All Space Considered, the observatory's monthly astronomy news program. Sarah joined the Planetary Society as digital community manager in 2020, using her science communication skills to cultivate the Planetary Society's online communities. In 2023, she became the host and producer of Planetary Radio, the Planetary Society's weekly podcast and radio show. She continues to share the human adventure across our solar system and beyond each week. All right. Well, Sarah, thank you so very much for being here. We were just chatting right before I clicked record, as we are wont to do, how we've been wanting to invite you to Dice and Mind for the longest time, and then you made the fatal mistake several episodes ago on Planetary Radio of talking about your gaming history a little bit, and I was like, yes, that's the hook. So we are just delighted that you're here.
Well, thanks for inviting me. I mean, honestly, my deepest passion is space, but
Mhm.
if I were going to be doing anything else, it would be communicating about gaming because it's been such a big part of my journey. And it's honestly the way that I hang out with most of my friends.
That's so cool. Do you play a lot? Like, is there time to do something organized or regular?
We, what we end up doing is we have this beautiful table that we got. We ordered it on Kickstarter. We kickstarted this project. So whenever we put a board game or a tabletop session down, we can store it within the table. So it might
Oh,
be weeks or so before we come
oh,
back to it, but it gives us an opportunity to play in person with our friends if we want to do that. We also do a lot of tabletop simulator. So a lot of the games we end up playing, we can
okay.
play with our friends online, but it's not as common anymore as I like, just because I spend so much time interviewing people and working on my planetary radio job.
Yeah. Well, speaking of your planetary radio job, I want to talk about that if we might for just a moment, because one, it's awesome. So, I'm a little biased here because Planetary Radio is my absolute favorite podcast, and has been for so long. I actually, before I came downstairs to log in to chat with you and Brad, I looked up my membership, and I'm a little proud and a little embarrassed that as of last month, I've been a member of Planetary Society for 15 years.
That's amazing.
And it's awesome. And because I so appreciate the work and respect it. And I think I've probably listened to Planetary Radio almost from the beginning. I didn't know much about planetary radio at that point beforehand. Like as a kid, I was a member of the National Space Society, right? Like stuff like that. And I never wanted a Mars focus. I wanted a moon focus. And so Planetary Society wasn't quite on my radar. And then I was reading something back in like '07 or '08, back in the day. And something clicked and I started thinking about it. And so, yeah, I mean, it's been like 15 years now and it's just the coolest. And I loved Planetary Radio with Matt Kaplan. I mean, it was so good. And when I remember the first episode where he introduced you. And I was like, "Oh, this is going to be such a big change," which is fine, right? But like end of an era. And I don't know how you did it, but it's better even now. And it's just been awesome. And what you bring, and then the enthusiasm, and the fact that you have them back every once in a while, it's just really cool. So take that as you will, but I didn't think Planetary Radio could get any better. And the way you've taken it, um, I mean, I just go out of my way to listen. It's so much fun.
That means the world to me because honestly, Matt Kaplan is a legend. He ran that show for 20 years by himself. And just just being able to work with him at all was a big thing for me.
Mhm.
He's
Yeah.
part of how I ended up at the Planetary Society because long before I even applied to work, and my original job there wasn't on Planetary Radio. My first
Mm.
job was as digital community manager, doing social media and helping to build a member community app. So when I first applied, he remembered a previous conversation that we had together about the fact that I wanted to work at the Planetary Society and vouched for me years
Wow.
after we had met. Like he's one of those people that truly cares about others. So being able to step into that role and to be trusted with it means the world to me and
That's cool.
big shoes to fill,
Mhm.
right? I really didn't want to disappoint anyone, but more than anything, it just felt really natural because it's just about talking to the people that do the space missions that I love and then sharing that with everyone. And of course, it's going to be a little different because I'm, clearly a different person from Matt, but it means a lot to hear that you're enjoying the show still because I'm having a great time.
Yeah, and it shows. It shows. What I'm curious because you're okay because you've talked about this, but before we get to gaming here, as we kind of transition, kind of slowly slide over in that direction.
But before you
So,
do that, Jace,
oh yeah,
because I just want to say, because there might be some folks who may not necessarily be as familiar with the Planetary Society
that's
and Planetary
inexcusable but
Radio.
true.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and this
you
is a
should
good
pitch the Planetary Society, just
well,
like
and this
Casey
is
Dreyer does.
yeah, and this is a good hook
It is.
because I don't think people, there are people that have heard us talk about this because you've talked about this
Yeah, right.
before on prior episodes and all that.
Yeah,
But
definitely.
but um how did you end up working there, or even in digital, even before you started
Okay,
working
so
and
actually you're beating. I want to back up, so I'm going to interject
okay.
because you're actually we're sadly
Are
going in
you
the
were
same
you going
direction.
there? Okay, I
Yeah,
just
well, but
yeah.
but you're taking a more direct route, and like Sarah's about to discover, I have to make
Okay.
13 stopovers along the way.
Sorry, I forgot.
Well,
You're a
You just
professor
need
and
some
so
gravity assists on your way to
no,
the
he's a
target.
professor and
Oh
he's a
no, I
professor and
get
it takes
stuck in the
45
gravity
minutes to
well.
get to the point,
It's okay. I
So,
just kind of bump up against that event horizon until people walk away. No,
mhm.
but Brad's question, except I just wanted to add to that. You started by studying astrophysics, I think,
Yeah, I got
right?
my undergraduate degree in astrophysics at UC Berkeley.
Right, but you went into science communications eventually. And I'm
Yeah.
just, if you wouldn't mind, because I find that fascinating. If along the way of answering Brad's question, like maybe why that change? What drew you?
It was really about my experiences starting in research because I was really passionate about astrophysics and there were realms of it that I knew I wanted to go and do research in. And I started doing my undergraduate labs in exoplanet detection. And right around that time,
Oh,
the Kepler Space Telescope launched.
oh, that's
And
cool.
for those who are unfamiliar with this telescope was designed to find exoplanets, so worlds orbiting other stars. And prior to that, we had to do it one planet, one star system at a time, usually by watching a planet pass in front of the star and block out its light. So that's where I was. Then this telescope launched into space and completely changed the field, but effectively made my job hunting planets a little bit unnecessary. This telescope could find
Oh.
thousands of them at a time. And in this moment where I was kind of trying to figure out, well, what is my next step here? Do I wait for all the data to come out and dive
Hmm.
deeper into this science research? I realized that speaking to people about science and sharing what I had learned was the thing that really made me happy. It was really fun doing the research and getting to learn all the math and dive deeply into that. But there's nothing that compares, for me at least, to telling a child that they're made out of stardust or being able to answer people's questions about the universe and make it accessible to people. And before I even went into science, I was kind of waffling in the space between becoming a writer, or sci-fi writer, or
Oh.
someone that went into journalism and doing astrophysics, but one of them was clearly my deeper passion. So when I discovered in that moment of just upheaval in my life that I could do both, I could take
Hmm.
this passion
Hmm.
for science and my passion for writing and combine them and start sharing it with people. I found that was like really motivating for me. So I ended up working at Griffith Observatory in Los
Yeah.
Angeles, which has the world's most look-through telescope. If you ever get a chance to come up to Griffith Observatory in LA, it's a beautiful experience. And what you'll find there is that people from all over the world come to this observatory. And a lot of the time it's because it's free. Okay. It's a free science institution where you can just go and learn stuff from people. But it's full of these guides, these museum guides, and these telescope operators that just hang out and answer people's space questions. So I got a job working there and worked my way up into show production and writing for their magazine, the Griffith Observer. And just the way it filled
Neat.
my heart with joy to spend all day talking to people about it. And what I found too is that I learned just as much from them as they were learning from me. There were whole realms of astrophysics that I hadn't even really considered as deeply as I should have because I didn't think to ask the questions that people were asking me. So I had such a good time working on that. And then in the midst of me finally feeling like I was catching my stride as a show producer, the COVID pandemic happened.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
unfortunately, Griffith had to close down for a little while to make sure that everyone was safe. But it meant that all of us there, all of the science communicators, kind of had to figure out what our next side hustle was. So I was still kind of working remotely. And in the middle of that, one of my coworkers at Griffith, David Pinsky, who is an amazing person and knows more about meteorites than anybody I know.
You've had him on, I think, right?
Yeah, actually,
Mhm.
he came on. He's spoken in some previous episodes.
Mhm.
He's fantastic. But he saw that the Planetary Society was looking for someone to be their new digital community manager. And I had missed it, despite the fact that I was chronically online during COVID. And he forwarded that to me, and I applied immediately. And to my great surprise, I got the job. And
Wow.
and what a moment, right? Because the Planetary Society is the world's most effective and largest nonprofit dedicated to space advocacy
Yeah.
and advancing space science and exploration. And it was co-founded by Carl Sagan, who is one of my, greatest heroes. And
Yeah.
for a lot of people who went into science communication, he was our first example of a science communicator. And the way that he expressed it, like me as a little child watching Cosmos, I don't think I would be the same person without that. So
Mhm.
being able to step into that legacy was huge for me. And our CEO currently, who runs the Planetary Society,
Mhm.
is Bill Nye the Science Guy, right? Who was another one of my childhood heroes. So being able to be a part of that at all was huge for me. But then came the time that Matt Kaplan, who had been running the show for 20 years, needed to retire.
Yeah.
And I hadn't even really been considering applying because, I mean, what a daunting thing, right?
Mm.
It's Matt Kaplan, it's Planetary Radio. And I already had this job that I truly loved. And I know how many people out there are wonderful science communicators who deserved a shot at that job. So it didn't even really occur to me to apply until Matt asked me if I would, and that he hoped I would apply.
Nice.
And that meant the world to me, right? I mean, what a vote of confidence from someone that I truly deeply respect. So I applied, and again, through some crazy stroke of luck, here I am. So I found my way to Planetary Radio, and now every week I get to share the science behind the missions and talk to people who are doing things adjacent to space, either in
Hmm.
pop culture or in gaming, that kind of thing. And
Hmm.
every once in a while I slip what deep nerd I am about games into the show. But that's my journey. It's been a whole thing.
And all that time in the background, since childhood, you've been gaming.
Oh yeah. Yeah. I mean, I would say that I became a gamer with video games in the early 90s.
Okay.
My family on my dad's side comes from Saudi Arabia, and
Hmm.
I had an Arabic tutor at the time who bought me my first Sega Genesis. And it completely changed me.
Was it a bribe or was it a
Not a bribe. It was more so that anytime I went over to study Arabic at her house, we inevitably ended up in the basement with her kids playing Sega. There was
got
no
it?
way to stop us, right?
Nice.
Yeah.
So that's how I entered into it, but it wasn't until I was in high school really that I got into tabletop gaming, and it was because
Okay,
of
yeah.
my math teacher, Chris Wardlaw, my math teacher, who taught me most of the math I know and kind of made me
Wow.
feel comfortable and safe to pursue a career
Right.
in math and science, which can be very difficult
Hmm.
for people who are underrepresented in the field. I didn't
Hmm.
really feel safe to do that until I met someone like him that bolstered that in me and made me feel safe to do so. And he taught us all how to play Dungeons and Dragons and Magic the Gathering and sponsored our LAN party club for people who are too young to remember LAN parties. That was local area
Wow.
network
Oh,
parties where you actually
Deep,
had
yeah,
to
deep cut.
plug all your
yep.
computers together because we couldn't play games together online at the time. But yeah, he sponsored our club and taught us how to play all those games. And from that moment on, D&D and tabletop gaming became a huge part of my life.
When
So
you
cool.
land party, just out of curiosity,
Yeah.
what's one or two games that just come to mind when you do that? I'm just
Oh
curious.
man. Quake.
I think Warcraft and Quake and
Oh,
Doom, those are the
Warcraft for sure. We played a lot of that. Warcraft 3 being my favorite
yeah.
before World of Warcraft came out and completely changed my life. I got very deep into that game.
Hmm.
We played a lot of Halo.
Yeah.
My gosh, but m mostly, first person shooter type games is what I
Got it.
remember from that era. Despite the fact that I was not good at it at the time, I'm much better at those kinds of games now. But, you know, As
Can
with
I
anything, it takes a lot of practice. That is a high skill cap.
That's
can I ask, hopefully, and this might be sensitive, so I apologize in advance, but when you were talking about feeling safe getting into that realm, what did you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, whether it's directly spoken to you or just implicitly shown in our media, right?
yeah.
It wasn't a common thing for
Mhm.
girls or
Mhm.
for
Mhm.
I mean, I'm Saudi American, right?
Mhm.
Mhm.
I'm not necessarily the classic person you would see represented as a gamer or as a scientist in any of the media. So there weren't that many people that told me directly, "Hey, you shouldn't be gaming," right? Although I did get that every now and again.
Okay.
Hey, you shouldn't go into science. That's for boys. That is
Yeah.
something that I did hear directly from people, but
Yeah.
I think the deeper impact was just the lack of representation in media. Because
Hmm.
if I had seen
Hmm.
myself in that role, maybe I would have felt safe to do so. Yeah.
Yeah.
We
Yeah.
both have daughters that are college age, that, and so we're
And
and
science bound in one shape or another.
yeah, and
Yeah.
That's
are STEM
beautiful.
focused,
Yeah.
and that's kind of the reason I asked, because when
Yeah.
we see folks like you, or like, you know, it's funny. I was watching Prodigy today, so like Dr. Aaron McDonald,
Finally
and
got him
so
to do
Yeah.
it. Finally got him
yeah,
to do it. Yeah.
so I see things like this. So I for me as a
It's important.
parent,
Yeah.
it's
It is.
important for
Mhm.
me because I want them to see success stories
Right.
like this, you
And
know.
it's and I mean and this is a very Western thing, and we'll stay out of politics because right, that's not
Yes.
why any of us are here. But it's 2024, and perhaps some in the West forget where algebra comes from and where the Arabic numerals come from and
Hmm.
how 1,000 years can really turn history's perspective, and we forget a lot, right? Representation
Yeah, and
looks different.
even just the constellations and the star names themselves, so much of the basis of astronomy came out of the Middle East. So as a kid, I
Hmm.
did feel that connection because I was nerdy about space from the time I was 6 years old.
Hmm.
I decided very early on,
So
from the
cool.
moment I knew that exoplanets existed, that this was what I wanted to do with my life. But everyone was pretty convinced I'd give it up at some point, right? And
Yeah.
I almost did many times over. But sometimes when you're given those role models or that one or two those two people that really support your dreams, that's enough to make you feel safe enough to say,
Yeah.
you know what, it's worth me fighting
Yep.
for this thing that I want. And I'm so grateful for all those people that believed in me, right?
Mhm.
Because there's so many people that could have told me no.
Yep.
And it is increasingly apparent to me, although this wasn't why I got into the role as Planetary Radio host, but everywhere I go now, when I meet people who listen to the show, it is more and more evident to me how much it means to them to have role models
Hmm.
in this position.
Hmm.
Not that I ever dreamed I would be that role model, but just having a woman in that role is enough that multiple people have burst into tears on me in person. And
Hmm.
it is so impactful. This representation really matters. And I'm grateful that I had those people, but also Star Trek. I remember like very, very specifically, there was a moment I was watching Star Trek Voyager, and my mom was like, "Look, there's a woman, she's a captain of a starship. You
Yep.
could do that." Right?
Yep.
Mhm.
I'm sure she hears that a lot too, Kate Mulgrew.
I, I would have to assume.
I would hope. Yeah.
I hope so.
When you started, when you went from, or when you would go from digital to analog gaming,
Hmm.
um, was it really D&D that was kind of the first foray, or was it anything else, or was it kind of a mix?
I mean, I
Um,
think Magic the Gathering was the easiest and most accessible one because we could play it during lunch break, right?
Yep.
yeah.
Hmm.
But
Hmm.
those connections that I made with those friends and through the LAN party group formed my first D&D group in high school. And we played it every single weekend, all the way through high school, pulling random campaigns out of Dragon Magazine and stuff like that.
Wow.
Um, you know, gosh, I think we played mostly third edition. And then I went to college and found myself in another D&D group, meeting up with the people that I lived with in a co-op. I lived in the Berkeley co-op system. So we all lived together in this giant house, and one of our friends was deeply passionate about second edition Dungeons and Dragons. He was all
Hmm.
about the THAC0.
Interesting.
And so
God.
we had a place in the basement of our co-op where we would get together every single weekend and just play through it. And that game lasted for about 3 years. It went on for a long time.
Wow.
And I haven't found a group to play consistently with since then, although I've done some one-off campaigns with people here and there. And during COVID, as a way of connecting with my friends at Griffith, who I could no longer see on an everyday basis, we played an online game for quite a while that was super fun. It was kind of an adaptation of Pathfinder, but we created all these rules around space-based, exploration and science-based magic systems and stuff like that.
Oh, that's cool.
It was so much fun. It was so much fun, and I miss it. But as an adult, I find it increasingly difficult to find the time to play every single weekend. So, I do miss playing those role play games, but it really was that role play aspect, I think, that really attracted me to it. A lot of these other games are mechanically really interesting, and I,
Right.
I love the build crafting of creating your perfect magic deck, or putting together your perfect kill team, something like that. Build painting your Warcraft or your Warhammer army, excuse me. But I don't know, there's something about that camaraderie you get when you're all in a game
Yeah.
together for
Yeah.
years on end. The
Hmm.
friendships you make
Hmm.
and the weird stories along the way, like that I miss a lot.
Kind of a minutia question.
Yeah.
Um, I'm always the one that throws kind of the right turn type of questions out there, not political, just weird off turn questions. When you would play traditionally, what kind of characters would you play? Would you play characters that kind of aligned
Hmm.
with you personality wise, or
That's a
would
good
you kind
question.
of go kind of
Yeah.
off in a different direction from who you normally would be? Would you kind of challenge yourself? How would you kind of handle when you would play character wise?
Yeah, that definitely changed over time, right? Because I was so uncomfortable starting, I felt this kind of reticence to be myself early on in role playing, right? Because it's performance. I was always worried about embarrassing myself in some strange way. Now I'm completely over it. So when I began, I always played characters that were very much like me because I felt like
Yeah.
that was an interesting starting point. Usually some kind of like wizard or cleric, that kind of character, which is what I play predominantly in the video games. I always play some kind of long range or caster or support class character. But as I progressed through it, I found that I was really more attracted to playing the rogue type characters, or the clever ones that
Oh.
would go behind the scenes and kind of, either through charisma and manipulation find ways to get out of situations or that kind of thing, which is not what I usually do. But I liked being the sneaky characters. That was a lot of fun. What I really want to do is find a group that wants to play with full accents and just full character. Because for a long time there, I was working at the Northern California Renaissance Fair, was
Oh,
my side
wow.
gig for a long time.
Wow.
Okay.
And that one, you got to be in character forever. I did that for years. So you're just in full old school Elizabethan, and I think that kind of broke me out of my shell. So I think that would be really fun.
You had to
Wait.
do the accents and
Oh yeah,
yeah.
yeah. I don't know what it's like at other Renaissance fairs, but at that one specifically, they make you take classes in language and
Oh, wow.
improv and history. Just
Yeah.
getting in the door. Once you're actually employed there and you've been doing it for a while, you don't have to
Yeah.
take any of the classes, although you're totally allowed to take them as electives. So while I worked there, I would go back and take a class on, flower languages or the history of the plague or that kind of thing. But it was those first courses in language and improv that I think really, really took me to the next level with my tabletop gaming.
Where's that Ren Fair held in Northern California?
It's in Casa de Fruta, which is near kind of Gilroy, Hollister, San Juan Bautista area, but
Okay.
it's along the highway that kind of goes more toward inland California. So it is a beautiful place. They do it usually in September and October later in the year.
Okay.
But
Yeah,
it's it's
well,
usually a
yeah.
place where you can get beautiful fruits and stuff like that. So it's gorgeous and outdoors. And if you work there, you get to camp out, which I think makes it
Oh, see,
even more
I know the
special.
Bay Area pretty well, but I don't know that area at all.
Hmm. It
Okay.
kind of inland from Santa Cruz, that kind of
Oh,
area.
okay. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Terrible area. Really unsightly.
just just horrible. It's beautiful. It's a
I've
gorgeous
I've
place.
driven I've driven US 1 between San Francisco and Monterey, and it's like,
Hmm.
oh yeah.
Oh, it's a beautiful place to grow up, and at the time that I grew up there, it was very, I want to say underdeveloped, but I lived in a small
Hmm.
town. It was like 2,000 of us in our town and a small town next door. And
Yeah.
so we didn't have it's not like you could just roll over to the mall, right? We
Yeah.
would go outside and run around in the fields, or we'd go play games together. So
Yeah.
that's kind of how we passed the time.
California, I think, is unique like that, especially Northern California, or what I call California. Sorry, no offense to Southern California, but I mean, talk about two states in one. But there's such a large population, of course, and you've got these massive cities, and yet, like you're saying, you can be in these towns, and they're just so rural.
Yep.
And it's like you're not even an hour away from one of the technological epicenters of the world, but let's go pick some fruit. And it's kind of amazing to me. It's kind of beautiful to me.
Absolutely. And if anyone's a fan of Hitchcock films, the movie Vertigo, the end scene was actually filmed at the San Juan Bautista Mission, which is the town that I
Oh,
lived in. So if anyone's a fan
oh,
of that, or you ever want to stop by Vertigo Coffee in San Juan, highly recommend it.
oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Okay, while we're on California, I've got to ask a question only because then vicariously I can live through you. So the Computer History Museum is one of my happy places. The place blows me away. Been there a couple times. I was there last winter and I called Brad because we happened to be there and I wanted to see the Mac 40th, exhibit. That was totally worth it and I was sending pictures. But right now they're hosting or about to host an exhibition on gaming. And I was,
Really?
oh, okay, so that answers my question. I was going to ask her, have you
I
gone
haven't been
yet?
to this
It
museum,
looks,
no.
you've never been to the Computer History Museum.
I've never been.
Oh, Sarah, it blows the mind. Okay, so I'm going to tell my little story. I apologize, but it makes me so happy. So the first time I went,
Hold on, I gotta get the tape to wrap my glasses. Hold on.
well, just get your pocket
Give the
protector. We'll
pocket
wait.
protector.
Right. I actually have my dad's slide rule right here, but I'll spare us
Okay.
all. Um,
Oh man,
uh,
you should see what Bill Nye does when he starts popping off on slide rules. It's amazing.
I have no
Anyway.
idea how to use it. I'm like, I mean, is there a stone that comes with this? Years ago, several years ago, we were visiting because my wife's extended family, both sides, all Bay Area, and I had seen this documentary on PBS on the history of computers, and just the imagery and the photography, I realized this has to be a place, right? No way does PBS just have all this money to, just arrange these things. Their entire systems. It's amazing. So I did a little research and I discovered the museum. It's unsurprisingly in Palo Alto, right?
Yep, that makes sense. That
Yeah,
tracks.
yeah, right off. I mean, like boom, right off the freeway, and and so we were going to be there, and I was with my wife and my two girls, and they were pretty young at the time, and it was my birthday. And so it's one of the few times where it's like, what do you want to do? And I pulled rank. I'm like, it's my birthday. So what I want to do is go to the Computer History Museum. And they're like, fine, we'll go to the Computer History Museum. With my wife, who is not at all sciencey, right? She's learned to tolerate, but she's not at all sciencey. And my girls, who, they're little at the time, we spent like 3.5 hours there. And toward the end, they have in a lucite case an original Apple One.
Oh my gosh.
Right. And so I'm sitting there and it's like hush tones. And one of my daughters is with me, is right next to me. And I'm like, she's little and I'm like explaining this computer in the history. And some other dad walks up to me thinking I'm a docent and asks me a question. And it was like one of the highlights of my life, like to be mistaken as a docent there. But it's an amazing place. Like if you ever can, that's exactly what it was. I'm glad we are not a video podcast. Um, yeah, Brad's peppering us with imagery, but it really is a super super fascinating
I can't.
place.
I shouldn't do that
No,
because I'll
you're
be
worse than
honest
I
with
am.
you.
They
I
have
would
a
be worse.
PDP-1 running the original space not Space Invader, asteroid, right? They've got all kinds of crazy stuff there. They've got a Babbage engine. I mean, no, I mean,
That's
and
amazing.
it's amazing. Anyways, it's super geeky.
I was a
Yeah,
card carrying member of the cult of Steve Jobs for many years. So
yeah.
I was so I would go there just to see, I would want to see the black cased apple that Bell and Howell had that most people don't remember
We'll
or know about
we'll make
and all
pilgrimage
that kind of
together
stuff.
eventually.
Yeah,
Yeah,
someday we will.
yeah.
But when you went there and went to the actual to the Apple and you showed the t-shirts and I
I've never paid
regretfully said,
that much. I went to Apple afterwards. I'd been
yeah,
to the mothership
but
when it still existed. I guess it still does. And then I wanted to see the spaceship. I've never paid that much for a t-shirt in my life, and I never will again. but it was
Worth
totally
it.
worth
I
it.
mean,
Oh, totally
commemorate the
worth it.
moment.
But
Yeah.
when you,
How wacky is it? How much that technology has changed? It was
Oh,
only just last year I built my first desktop computer, and I had to
ooh.
train myself how to do it using Tabletop Simulator, or sorry, not Tabletop Simulator.
Oh my God.
What is it? Desktop Building Simulator.
So what did you build?
I mean, the shiniest computer I could.
did you
I
get the, did you, do you have the neon? Do you have the neon,
it's
the
it's all
lights? And
neon, and I got all the parts in white, which took me quite a while. Trying to get a motherboard in white, or the graphics card was the
Oh
hardest
my
thing.
God.
But actually building my own computer gave me so much respect.
okay, 30-second
For,
nerd time. What kind of graphics card?
oh gosh.
Was it an NVIDIA card? Did you
It was. I'm trying to remember which generation it
you
was
didn't
because
have
it
to
was
mortgage
like
that you didn't have to mortgage the house for it, right?
no, but I
Okay.
had been waiting 2 years to try to purchase it because so many of the graphics card prices had been jacked through the roof because of
I have
everyone crypto mining.
Oh
$6,000.
my God.
Right? But
Yes.
my goal in life was to
Oh.
be able to play Star Citizen without my computer crashing, and we accomplished it. So
Oh, you crossed over into hardcore. That is impressive.
just a little hardcore.
Wow, a little
I'm
hardcore.
I have not delved into Star Citizen. I just told Jason that my problem is if I get in online games like I got into um uh Star Trek Online and I
Yeah,
went
yeah, yeah.
down a rabbit hole with
Yeah.
that. It is still sitting upstairs on a machine that I have reset up for it, and I am cautiously not touching it right now.
Hmm.
Um,
Smart.
and there are some other games that I
Yeah.
have wanted to play, but I am Star Citizen. I am purposefully not looking at because I'm fearful of
Yeah.
what would
Well,
happen.
wait too on that one because it's not fully done yet, right?
No,
Right
that's
now,
another reason.
it's a beautiful example of trying to break the boundaries of our current gaming technology.
Oh
I think
wow.
once it's fully launched, it's going to allow us to do some really cool things because they're not just building the game, but they're also building a game engine that
Mhm.
goes hand in hand with it. So people will be able to use that server meshing technology to create vast worlds full of hundreds or
Jeez.
thousands of people all interconnected with each other. And once
Oh
that
my
game
God.
comes out and you're able to actually travel between star systems and really build your bases. And I'm really looking forward to seeing what the emergent kind of ecosystem is in that game. But I'm guessing we're going to have to wait a few years for that. And
No
then we'll
Man's
have
Sky
the
blew
Star
my
Citizen
mind.
tabletop game.
Yeah,
Oh,
No Man's Sky blew my mind when I
oh
That
started
my
playing
God.
that.
game. Oh my
You
gosh.
know,
And the fact that it keeps going, the fact that they keep updating it with new and cooler stuff. The way my mind was completely blown when I beat it for the first time and got access to a new galaxy. Oh my gosh.
hmm
It's amazing.
Jason doesn't know about this yet. I'll show you when I come up there, Jason.
I just can't. I
Yeah,
Oh
Jason,
I don't
man.
think I could stay employed.
I
Jason.
take
Oh,
pictures of all my adventures and put them into a log of exploration. I
oh,
got
that's cool.
so ridiculously deep into it, but I mean, it's the
Man,
closest that you can really get to that kind of
right.
exploration, second to watching these space missions go out and take images.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh my God. That
I'll have
just
to
sounds
explain
so
it to. I
cool.
have not explained it to
Yeah.
you yet, Jason, because that would be one of those.
Yeah.
It would be like a three
I,
hour conversation.
yeah,
So,
I just can't right now and I want to.
and when you and I started the podcast, that's when I stopped gaming because it was literally podcast or my time gaming, and there
Yeah,
was
right,
just
right. I mean, yeah,
so that's
yeah.
why I have resisted. But
To pivot
um,
for a sec to Star Trek, because I got
yeah,
to go there. Because I mean, you've talked numerous times on Planetary Radio. You and I mean, lots of your guests, of course. Like so many of us in the sciences have been influenced either causally or just
yes,
adjacently by Trek and our love for Trek. But you clearly love Trek, right?
I do.
Um, I so I'm curious if you want to like this is a great place to talk about that because we're always going to
Mhm.
talk Trek, but also we are ethically, though sadly not contractually, obligated to ask, have you yet played Star Trek Adventures?
I haven't.
Oh, you have to.
I haven't played it.
Second edition core rule book comes out we think with Gen Con.
Oh,
And we've been very privileged to have been sent the PDF like way in advance to, and it's even more amazing than the first one. But like if you're like us and you love Trek and you love RPGs, and I was very slow to warm to it. Like, what's a 2D20? Why do I need a second one? Um, and I mean, it's the most fun I've ever had playing an RPG.
wow. That's high praise.
Yeah.
I feel like that's one of those worlds that we're also deeply connected to, that it's so
Hmm.
easy for us to fall into those roles
Yeah,
and to
right.
know where we want to play within it. Like
Mhm.
I really enjoyed playing the Star Trek Bridge Crew in VR on the Oculus early on. The first time I
Oh,
sat down to play that, I was at a convention and just like sitting in the chair. And there was this moment where we were trying to beam someone aboard. And I immediately was like, well, okay, I'm taking down the shields. We beamed them in. Afterwards, the person who was running the game was like, how did you know how to do that? And I was like, we've all seen Star Trek. I
that's
would love to
awesome.
play that game. That sounds like a lot of fun.
It's funny. It's funny how it's like it was
Yeah.
instinctual for you, even though it
Hmm.
was, it's something we never do in real life, nor will we do in our lifetime, but it was instinctual nonetheless.
Yeah.
Like that's Star Trek is one of those shows that's like I just keep coming back to it. It's like my comfort show. Like I don't
Mhm.
know if other people do this, but it's like I
Yeah.
compulsively watch shows that I know make me happy
Yep.
in the background. And Star Trek just it depicts the world that I want for space exploration. And shows
Right.
like The Expanse as an example.
Hmm. Hmm.
Really well done show, but it makes me
Hmm.
scared for the future,
Hmm.
and it makes me wonder if we're ever going to overcome all these
Yeah.
issues that we need to overcome in order to go to space and do it ethically. But Star Trek just displays this beautiful world where stories can still be complex and meaningful without the issues of everyday day-to-day survival, right? All
Right.
these people have all their needs met. They all have jobs living together on a spaceship, and yet the interpersonal connections and the drama of just trying to explore and understand yourself in the context of other species is enough to produce that that tension, right?
Hmm.
And I love how they deal with it with such kindness. And I mean, it probably sucked me into it just because A, I love space, and B, I felt represented through Star Trek. But I mean, man, I'm so grateful that it's still going on. And through my job at Planetary Radio, I've been able to meet a lot of these Star Trek actors and
Oh, that's cool.
get to
Yeah.
experience them in person. I mean, the first time the first time I got to meet Beverly Crusher, I kind of lost my mind.
Oh,
Um,
That's great.
Meeting Q, that was so fun. I mean,
oh,
Saru, I've had such a wonderful
Oh my
time.
oh,
God.
And of course,
Um,
the EMH from Voyager is on our board of
yeah,
directors,
he's
Bob
so
Picardo.
talented.
oh, Robert
It's
Picaro's on
just,
your
oh
board?
yeah,
Oh yeah,
yeah.
he's
Oh,
fantastic. He deeply loves space exploration and is just such a champion for
Best
space exploration.
PSAs ever. I
Oh,
could
really though.
listen to anything he says or reads.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's nice having him on
he's
our
such
team
a
to be
great
able to do
actor.
that.
Do you have a favorite Trek or like a go-to?
Next generation, I think. D Despite
Yes.
the fact that Voyager is my connection to Janeway
Yeah, of
is
course.
probably the deepest connection for captains, although, Picard, classic.
Yeah.
But Next Generation, I just loved the crew so much, the dynamics
Mhm.
between them, Data
Yeah.
as a character. For
Yes.
me, it's always those characters that are not entirely human or
Yeah.
don't feel comfortable to be as human as they
Hmm.
want to be. Seven of
Hmm.
Nine in Voyager
Hmm.
is another example. Like I love that exploration of what it means to be human through the eyes of someone who wishes
Right.
they could be or is adjacent
Right.
to, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Can we,
Ah,
can
it's
we,
great. It's great.
and I want to be very cognizant of your time.
Yep.
No
Um,
worries.
could we maybe ask, and maybe steal some of your like secret sauce? Because as you could tell, we literally are a one horse outfit. You're talking to up on the screen there with the wooden background. He is our
I don't know what you're talking
producer.
about. I use a pillow as my soundproofing and it
Well,
works
I'm telling you
beautifully.
that, no, no, no. What I'm saying with the wooden background, you're our producer, director. Yeah, you are the man.
I mean, same
You are a man. And
though,
I say that
right?
in all seriousness,
Wait,
somewhat
Sarah,
facetious, but
seriously, but you must have a team.
well, I
I
want.
have an audio editor that
Okay.
helps me.
Okay.
Andrew
Okay.
Lucas helps me do audio editing for a few hours each week, and is a fantastic audio editor.
Yeah,
But it's a strange thing, but I have the autonomy to do everything on the show, and it's
that's
it's really
amazing.
just me and him. And we have some other people on our team that help me put together the website
Yeah,
and
of
read
course.
over my
Right.
stuff, right? But I get to do anything I want, really. I get to be full
Yeah.
host, producer, do
Because
all
it
the
it
emails to
it
everyone.
comes across, it comes over the air as if you have an entire team behind
Really?
you. Yeah, that's so
If only.
impressive.
That would be
Yeah. Wow.
wonderful because I think the show could be something so much more if we had a
You
full
mentioned that.
team and if we if
Mm-hmm.
I want to take it into this realm where we can share videos with people and
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
really dive deep, get multiple people's perspectives on a single story, that kind of thing. But we're a nonprofit. We're a
Yeah.
small but mighty team, right?
Yeah.
And in the meantime, it just means that I get full autonomy to do whatever I want. If I want to call up
So
Christina
cool.
Mitchell and talk about tabletop RPGs about Hubble, I can do that.
Yep.
It's beautiful. It's a lot of fun.
Do you do, um, knowing X amount of time in advance, kind of who
Mhm.
you're going to have on the show and all that. Do you do any sort of like prep, or I don't want to steal any secrets or anything like that, because we have our secrets here,
We
because
have no secrets.
we have no
Yeah.
secrets. We
No.
don't
You mean
do
like
guitar.
prep on a subject before I
Yeah,
talk
or
to
just
them?
kind of, how do you kind of, if you're going to have someone on, um, you know, I maybe I should have asked this offline now that I think about it, or maybe I should have prepped.
No,
But
because I actually think that a lot of listeners would be curious about this. Like how
you
do
know,
you
how do
what
you kind of
yeah.
prepare for having a guest on?
Because you have so many experts, like
Yeah.
hardcore experts across diverse fields on the show.
Yeah, it's a really wide swath of different
Yeah.
realms of science, from planetary science to astrophysics sometimes to just realms of science that I didn't learn in school,
Yeah.
right? But thankfully the scientific community is really great about putting all their stuff online. So whenever I
Yeah.
broach a subject, I'll look up all the most recent scientific papers on a subject. I'll
Hmm.
look at what their most recent interview appearances are. Maybe I'll read a book that they wrote if I'm
Hmm.
doing
Hmm.
an interview on that. And I just read and I dive deep into a subject, which is quite a privilege to get paid to do that
Yeah,
kind
that's
of
cool.
research, right? So I just sit down and I take all my notes and take a step back and kind of think about, what are the things I want to get to, and how do I craft this interview into a story arc by guiding the person I'm talking to get to the subjects I want through questions. And it's a complicated thing, which I had no formal training in, really. Before I began this, I'd done some interviews in the past, but I just love talking to people, right? So I just find the things that I find really fascinating within their papers and their research, and I try to bring it up. But oh man, if I had a whole team, I would just spend all day just doing research and feeling prepared, because there are moments where I make a mistake or I didn't know something that I wish I had known, right? But that's a part of life, and I try as much as I can to leave those moments in, because I don't want to seem like I know everything, because I
Well,
don't,
and then
right?
but I think your audience, like they discover it with you,
Hmm.
right? Because I mean, there are obviously a lot of us who are in the sciences and listen because it's our thing and we love space, etc. But I have to assume the majority of your audience is lay. I mean, it has to be because you have a huge audience,
It's a
right?
pretty large audience, but you
Yeah.
know, I think what's really special about our audience is that so many people are pretty familiar with the
Oh,
topics
yeah,
already.
absolutely.
But I try to do my best to make sure that at least before we get into a conversation, or as we're having conversations about these topics, because it's such a broad range of subjects that no one person can know everything about them. I try
Mhm.
really hard to try to explain things as we go, or preface things outright. This is the realm of science we're talking about. Here's some of the acronyms we're going to be using,
Yeah,
because I want it to be accessible to everyone. These are such cool topics, and everyone deserves to be able to get into
yeah,
them, whether or not
yeah.
they're deeply immersed in the subject already.
Beautiful. I
Can I
I've
ask?
learned. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just going to ask one final question, just
Hmm.
because then
Hmm.
I'll let Jason. I'll kind of let you start to wrap it up. Otherwise, we'll keep Sarah here until
Tomorrow.
she'll
Yeah.
yeah, till tomorrow.
That's fine.
Um, so let's assume you have the staff that
Mhm.
will never end, and you had the ability now that you could take your
Oh,
show and you could take gaming, and you could find a way
nice.
to make that Venn diagram intersect.
Oh, that'd be so
Planetary
cool.
roll.
Yeah, planetary. Oh, there we
I
go.
mean, really though, how cool would it be to
Yeah.
do one or two live streams a week?
Oh
Maybe
my
one
God.
one tabletop and
Yeah.
one like gaming, where we go through and play the game, but also talk about the science behind it. Because
Hmm.
the way that so many people get into these subjects are either through gaming or through
Hmm.
sci-fi.
Hmm.
And those are the ways that people feel like science is accessible to them. And I want to meet people where they are and talk about the things that drove them to love these
Yeah.
subjects. If I had the time, man, I would do those two streams, and maybe I would love to do a star stream, connect my telescope to a live stream and just point it at things
Oh,
that people ask
that's
about.
cool.
That would be so much
Oh,
fun.
that would be
I
cool.
had a great time do
I
that.
would
And
up my membership.
Hey,
like,
and all I'm saying is that I think there'd be money out there for someone, I'd pay to hear Bill Nye roll a D20. That's all I'm saying.
I have to
and
assume it's
this is
happened.
You
actually a
know,
really funny thing that happened just recently. I think the video just came out yesterday. We put together this video. We were making jokes about rogue planets and
Yeah.
rogues. And
Oh
so we
God.
put out a short on all of our social media of all of us talking about gaming essentially. And Bill
Oh, I
Nye
missed
is
that.
wearing my cloak in that, and you will actually see him roll some dice. So
Oh, I've got to look that, and that went out on all the
oh,
socials.
it went on all our socials
I've got to look.
just
I missed
yesterday
that.
on
Okay.
July 9th. So you can check that one out. I'm in there
That's
for a hot
so
second
cool.
asking whether or not there's Klingons in the game we're playing.
Klingons and
It would be
rogues
wonderful
and
to do that because the last time I talked to Bill about it, he had never actually had the opportunity to play Dungeons and Dragons with a full group. And it would be really
Wow.
fun. I think that Lost Universe game that NASA
Hmm.
put out about Hubble, I think would be a really fun thing for us to do as a coworker thing, if not
Yes.
to share with the public. Because I don't have the facility to set up a giant, you know,
oh,
tabletop extravaganza video live stream, but I would
Mm.
love to do that.
some
Yeah,
of
that'd
those
be
fancy, you don't
fascinating.
even need to. Some of
Mm.
those you can get some of the, you go out on Twitch and you see some of those fancy Twitch setups where everyone's in
Hmm.
their house with the backdrop and
Right.
I've
Critical Role style.
yeah, yeah.
Right.
I just call up
So
Matt Mercer and be like, "Hey, can
Yeah.
you
yeah,
help us figure out how to play
Re-
this?"
how
You
this
you really just need a soundtrack in the background, and then all of
yeah,
your problems are solved.
It's
yeah.
true. We got some great musicians on staff. But I'm in the process of trying to figure out how we can upgrade our recording studio. And things like this are on my mind
That's
because
really cool.
this show has been going on for so long.
Yeah.
I want to find ways to
Yeah.
to share it with more people, not just for my own betterment because, metrics, but
Hmm. Hmm.
feel like we're at this phase where we're about to start the new big push of human exploration into space. This
Yes.
is the biggest time in
Yes.
space exploration since the Apollo era. We're
Yes.
going into the Artemis,
Yep. That's right.
the Artemis period of our space exploration. And at the same time, there are so many cool new missions and new capabilities we've never had before. What the James Webb Telescope is doing. We got Europa Clipper coming down the pipeline.
Oh.
We're doing planetary defense missions for the first time, slamming into asteroids and changing their orbit. There's
Hmm.
so much
Hmm.
cool, awesome, and empowering things that we're doing. And I,
Yeah.
I want more people to know because I feel like
Hmm.
I mean, I know we say this all the time on the show, but space brings out the best in us. It helps us look toward our aspirations
Hmm.
and drives us to look at each other in this way that's very inclusive and true.
Hmm.
We're all just creatures living on this rock that's hurtling through space. And despite the complexity of human life, we're doing these amazing things out there. I think it would make people feel a lot better about who we are as a species and the amazing things that we're doing if they had access to this information.
that's I mean, again, we
So
don't,
beautifully said.
without
Yeah.
driving it too hard, it's very
Yeah.
easy to turn on the TV and see the bad.
Yeah.
Yep.
It'd be nice to see more mainstream good and to
Hmm.
remind especially the younger generations that
Hmm.
what's out there and that they can make a difference.
And
Absolutely.
and I think like we're reminded every month on the Space Policy Edition, which has got to be like the nerdiest thing on the planet. And
So good.
it's so good. I have been an inveterate listener since the first one. Like it's I like it actually got me like professionally into space policy, like around the edges. Like but 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 his point that this is one of the only topics in the world where essentially everyone is willing to come together. There's not a lot of disagreement.
Yeah. And I got to see it in person for the first time. It was my first trip to
Oh,
go to our Day of Action
mm-hmm,
earlier this year.
mm-hmm.
We do this advocacy event
Yeah,
for people in
it's
the United
amazing.
States where we go to Washington, D.C., and we set up meetings for everyone to speak to their congressional representatives and to
Yeah,
pop into meetings with people
yeah,
all over Congress. And I saw it, like
yeah.
no matter what the person I'm talking to believes, no matter where they are on the ideological spectrum, we can all agree together that space is amazing and that the science we're doing is pushing forward humanity, not just in our exploration of space, but
Right.
in all of the spin-off technologies and all the
Yeah.
ways that it helps us here on Earth.
Mhm.
So it's a beautiful bonding moment. The ways that we got to connect with these people and bring a little bit of sunshine into their office when they're dealing with these heavy subjects
Yeah.
all day, right? That was such a beautiful and moving thing for me. And I'm really hoping that I can go back every single year. It was quite a
Let's
privilege
go.
to be there, but my first time walking the halls of Congress.
Wow.
Yeah, that was really cool.
And you left alive. That was
I know, right? We did it for 2 days too, because the first
Yeah, that's
day was
amazing.
was people, Planetary Society members that had flown out from all over the United
Right.
States to do this with
wow.
us. But the second day, it was members of our board of directors, Bill
Okay.
Nye,
Yeah.
me, going through Congress together, and that was
Amazing.
fun too. Watching all the congressional staffers try to take pictures with Bill Nye, they were so excited.
I get it.
Yeah, but it's a subject that can bring us together across
It's a beautiful
all
thing.
countries, across all demographics, and
Hmm.
I want everyone to feel that same feeling that I came around to as people
Yeah.
supported me, that this
Right.
is for them, that this is
Mhm.
this
Yep.
is something that they can find accessible and something that they
Yeah.
can be passionate about no matter what their level of understanding is. Like this is the
Yes.
great human journey, man.
Well,
This is the thing that's going to take us to other star systems.
it literally and like it's coming. And maybe it's purely political and I remain super naive. Maybe, but like every time I see an update that yet another nation has signed on to the Artemis Accords.
Yep.
Every time that happens, and it's happening a lot,
Yeah, we're at
that gives me
43 now.
that. I mean, think about that. Think about that. That gives me, that's like a fifth of the nations of the world,
Hmm.
right? And almost all the big ones, and a lot of little players who maybe someday will become big players, right? I mean, just that
Hmm.
gives me hope every time I see, especially one of the less developed countries sign on and they're like, yeah, we're in, we'll do our part. That's amazing.
It's beautiful to see. And I think the moment that it really crystallized for me was with the United Arab Emirates,
Yeah, I was
their
thinking the same
their
thing.
Hope mission. They literally named the mission
Yeah.
Hope because they wanted it to give hope to the people of the Middle East that they could be seen in this light as well. That this drive to try to go and explore another world, in that case Mars, would give people around the world a different context for what the Arab world can achieve.
Yeah.
And they were so proud when they launched
Yeah.
that thing. They lit up all the
Yes.
buildings in Dubai. The whole Middle East celebrated. And
Yeah.
and you see that same thing happen over and over and over again in other
Yeah.
countries. We're
Yeah.
seeing Korea go through their big kind of space renaissance right now.
So
Just the other
cool.
day, I had someone who's working in Australia with a consortium of a bunch of different commercial space entities, and also coordinating with the Australian Space Agency that only just got put together. I think 2018 they were formed.
So
And already they're a part of the Artemis missions, and sending a rover to the moon is their next big step. That's
the
amazing.
the Rover,
The rover,
because
what a great name.
I'm only 10 minutes into your episode that dropped today. I haven't had any more time. That's what I'm doing tonight to listen to the end of that. And it's all together, right? And that's one of the things I love about Planetary Society writ large is regardless of politics, like when Chang'e 5 is on the far side and it sends a picture, it's like we celebrate because this is for humanity ultimately, right?
Absolutely.
It's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. I'm even right now, I'm trying to get someone onto the show to talk about the Chang'e 6 lunar sample return.
Oh, please
I
do.
mean, that is something that I
Oh,
would love to do, is really
Yeah.
have the time to connect with all of these space agencies and
Yeah.
really dive deep into what a lot of these emerging,
Yeah.
space industries and
Hmm.
space agencies are doing, because it's really beautiful to see. And every new nation that joins onto the Artemis Accords gives me a lot of hope for the future, because
Yeah.
I know there's still that kind of space race 2.0 kind of thing going on in some
Yeah.
realms.
Yep.
But the fact that we've got so many nations coming together to support this mission to send humans back to the moon for the first time in over 50 years, and that we've already nailed down that we're sending people who are underrepresented from previous space missions to
Yep.
the moon. I
Yep.
mean, what is it going to mean to people to see the first woman, the first person of color step out onto the moon and leave their boot
Mhm.
print, just as Buzz
Yes.
Aldrin and everyone else did before?
Yeah.
I'm going to burst into tears and
And,
then continue to burst into tears thinking about it for decades later.
and hear multiple
mhm.
languages being spoken from
Yes.
the moon.
Yeah.
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 Yeah. That was
S-
touching to me too recently, talking about the Europa Clipper mission.
yeah.
The vault plate that they sent has the human word for water in over 100
That's
languages.
cool.
And it's like a Fourier transform representation of the American Sign Language version of the word water
Oh yeah.
on that spacecraft. And they're going to be
Hmm.
launching that in October out to go explore Europa, moon of Jupiter.
Cannot tell you how excited I am about that. I
So
let's
cool.
let's just hope we have to start advocating now, all of us, that before Artemis 3, when they touch down, they should bring some dice.
I would love that. Leave a D20 on the moon.
Oh yeah. Better than some of the stuff that's been left on the moon. I think we could do that. We
Oh
could make
yeah.
that happen.
Oh man, what
Sarah,
would you have to
oh,
build a D20 out of to survive the bombardment on the moon, the radiation? I want to know that. That'd be cool.
Lead?
Lead,
diamond, diamond.
diamond, diamond D20.
A diamond D20.
Think about that. That would last, right? That's you know the commercial from the 40s. A diamond is an astronaut's best friend. Mhm. Yeah. Sarah,
From the 40s? Did you say from the
I
40s?
never mind. It's a deep cut that I might have drifted a bit.
Okay.
It's yeah,
Okay.
I
Okay.
can hear the song, but I might have fussed with the words of it.
Okay.
Diamonds are
Um,
forever.
Yeah,
See,
there it is. That was
right?
Zales. That was a Zales
No,
commercial
no,
for
it
no,
was
was it?
the whole thing with De Beers and then actually it goes really downhill from there historically. But anyways,
Oh yeah.
yeah, but it certainly helped Hollywood. Sarah, thank you. Shukran, thank you for taking the time. This has been so much fun. We're just really delighted you could be with us.
Thank you so much for inviting me. And honestly, thank you to everyone out there who loves space and helps support us and who plays games to experience the universe. I think it's something that brings us all together, and I just love gaming so much. So thanks for giving me an opportunity to talk about my second greatest passion.
I know, as you said right before we headed to the interview, that Sarah somewhat volunteered to come back this fall for another episode. So coming this fall, Tales from the Game Store.
That's right.
Um,
That's right. Sarah, thank you so much.
yes.
We really appreciate the time you spent with us. It was so much fun. Really, really enjoyed the wide-ranging conversation.
Yeah. And again, I mean, just, I said this kind of during the the interview, and I'll say this now, and Jason, you can't edit it out. I know on many occasions we've kind of alluded to the fact that the dynamic and kind of the vibe of Planetary Radio is kind of in some ways, you know, an underlying kind of vibe that we have kind of hoped to achieve in some ways in our
Absolutely.
show ourselves.
Yeah.
Because we think it's a good one. And so we aspire to
Yeah.
mimic. Um,
And then to learn from Sarah that she does the vast majority of work producing Planetary Radio with just a bit of editing and assistance. I mean, like I
yeah.
said in the interview, I thought there was like an entire team to help with that. The production value is just absolutely first rate.
Yeah, and I think she had mentioned, yeah, she did mention, because you and I both looked for it. There's a small clip out there. Look for the clip
Yeah,
online.
it's worth
The
it.
Yeah, there's a deep cut clip of
Yes.
Bill Nye as a rogue. Look for it online.
Yeah, that was well done. All
So
right, so let's wander over to Audubon Court.
yeah, so it sounds to me like just before you hit record, you had a little bit of a gleam in your eye, and I'm a little curious as to why. So what's on the table with you?
So I was initially going to
Now,
bring
as
up,
we're recording this, as we break the fourth wall, as I normally do,
yes.
you have just returned from a trip. Oh, I'm
Uh,
juggling on
oh,
purpose because we are at Audubon Court and we do drink. Remember, I'm having
oh,
my
fair enough. You're having a tea-based substance. That is well played,
yes.
sir. Well played. Um,
Don't
as we
don't
were,
don't parrot me about it. This is Audubon Court. Remember, we have tea or coffee or
we
whatever.
do. Yeah, actually, I'm gonna make tea when I go upstairs.
Yeah.
Um, uh, yeah, I will potentially have more to say about the conference. As we're recording this, I'm 2 days away from leaving. As this episode drops, I will have been home for 2 days, which is
Mhm.
ironic. So thank you for asking. I'm just gonna leave that there. And if there's something relevant or interesting from the conference, I'm for our audience, I'm going abroad for a conference. My wife is coming with me. Uh, if there's something interesting, I'll bring it back to Audubon Court for the following episode. What I was going to bring up that's been on my desk slash screens is season 2 of Star Trek Prodigy,
I thought so.
which I think is some of the best Trek ever made, up there in my mind, in my estimation, with Picard season 3. However, that's not what I want to bring up. I'll go a little more sentimental because it's so directly relevant. I didn't bring this up when we were talking to Sarah. She has deep ties to Griffith Observatory in LA, in the mountains, in the hills overlooking LA. I don't think I've ironically ever been inside Griffith. However, it's a really lovely drive up the observatory road from the valley. And I have and had family in the LA area. And
Is it the family that I'm aware of?
yep. So, I mean,
Your cousins
she's,
that I know.
yeah, she's not
Okay.
listening,
Yeah.
but my cousins, Heidi and Mitzi,
Hmm.
uh, and so Heidi, if you're listening, hi, but you're
You're
not,
not
so it's
listening.
okay because you have discerning taste in your podcasts.
Hmm.
Um, my brother and I would go out, and they became really like sisters to us, and certainly there was distance, and we'd see each other every 1 to 2 years, and it was like no time had passed, right? Like it should be. And at least a couple times we would drive up, just the four of us, and just because the drive was fun, and then we'd hang out walking around walking around the observatory because you're up on this hill overlooking LA, and you can walk around the outside on top, and it's absolutely beautiful. And I remember once we stayed to watch sunset down over LA from
Oh.
Griffith Observatory. And I've thought of that many times over the years, especially since my cousin Mitzi died several years ago now. Very,
Mhm.
very young. And it's just a really lovely set of memories. And so I never got around to talking about that with Sarah, but I've heard her talk on Planetary Radio about her passion, her adoration for Griffith Observatory, and it's really historically a special place. And it's kind of a special place at a distance to me too. So not quite on my desk, but kind of a cool connection, right? A little bit from our discussion with Sarah. How about you, sir? What is on
I don't
your
know if I could.
desk?
A
It's a little tangential, but I thought it was appropriate.
no. I think that's a really neat memory, and as you would say, you know, may those memories be a blessing, and those
Yeah,
definitely are a
yeah,
blessing.
thank you. Well said.
Um, for me, I guess, whether it be, um, you know, before or after your return, um, I had a break in time with what I was doing in terms of reading, writing. I think I told you as we're recording it today, um, we had, um, you know, we had a session. You and Dr. Aaron Peterson conducted a session regarding some work that we're
Yep.
doing.
Yep. Yeah, you're
Um,
right. You're writing a chapter for an
yep,
anthology.
a
We had a couple author sessions over the
number of
past two
author
days.
sessions,
Yep.
and for whatever it's worth, maybe it's because we had some other uh, Star Trek Adventures writers on there. Maybe it was
Yep.
because it was Trek. Whatever the case is, I came downstairs this afternoon
Yeah, you were texting.
and uh, and grabbed my copy of um, the Star Trek Adventures Captain's Log.
Oh,
I
so good.
I don't know what I'm going to do with it yet.
Hmm.
You're gone for as we're recording this. You're going to be gone for about a week,
Hmm.
10 days, 10 days,
8 days.
8 days,
8 days including travel.
8 days. Um, in the back of my head, we have that I have that unfinished broken project of new adventures, new voyages that's been sitting out there. And well, this has been sitting hanging over me for a while now, just because I'm like, is there a way to produce it and make it simpler? And Um,
Interesting.
I'm putting this out rather than us talking about it offline, so I'm putting it out here for everyone here. And so over the next couple days, I'm just pondering the idea of how can we continue new voyages, but make it maybe just a little simpler. And my thoughts have been um, something that we've pondered doing for a while, although we both have writing projects that are keeping us busy. Could it be an integrated writing and audio project where each of us is just one audio character, one
You're
audio
reading my
character,
mind.
one audio character instead of multiple, and we can then choose to write. And it kind of goes back to um, I keep going back to our discussions with Michael Dismuke and how
Hmm.
he would write his
Yeah.
games that he would have with his
Yeah.
nieces and nephews,
Yep.
and so I this is a thought process item because I do have a bit of writing to do while you are traveling.
You and
Um,
me both.
yeah, I have about 4,000 or 5,000 words to write while you are gone. Um, but my thought is, what if it becomes kind of a hybrid product that we could commence with once um, this other project we have going
Yeah.
kind of wraps up, where it becomes kind of a blog and an audio, and you know. So again,
Yeah.
I'm doing something like this out here in Audubon Court versus us, you and I gabbing, but
I am in.
I will leave this with you to noodle on during your trip.
Yes, sir.
Um, if we can find a way, because I have been wanting to resurrect this for a while, and here's the problem I had is I purposefully have taken the background for New Voyages,
Yeah.
the blue background with where I
Right.
and that's the background on my laptop now,
Nice.
so that it stares me in the face and mocks me
Yep. Writing guilt.
hourly,
Nice.
daily, by the minute, because I want to come back to it. Um, but I want it simpler. And I think if each of us controls just our own character, and if we can run it at a pace where,
You're reading my
let's,
mind.
if you can do, if you end up doing two of them in a row, great. If
Mhm.
I end up doing one and then you end up doing two, or if I'm not busy some afternoon and I roll two out, great. And we have a story. It almost becomes like, for those that aren't from this area, I'm rambling and then we got to get going. Um, the days of comedy sports. Do you remember where comedy
Yeah.
sports where
Absolutely.
they would point at people and the story would go
Yep.
and run at random based off of that?
Improv. Yeah.
If we could improv our way a Star Trek story using the dice and ourselves
Yep.
and some framework.
Well, so I mean, what we were doing, but really simplified, really pared down.
Exactly.
I'm on board. To quote Saint Homer,
Hmm.
I am intrigued by your ideas and would like to subscribe to your newsletter.
And I jiggle my ice cubes with acceptance.
Before anyone's soul dies from that comment. Uh, thanks as always for being here, Sarah. Thank you especially for spending time with us. We really, really enjoyed talking with you. Love your work on Planetary Radio. As always, everyone, be well, stay well. We'll talk to you in a couple of weeks.